Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Defense Coalition stood before the massive holographic display, his four muscular arms crossed in what humans might recognize as deep skepticism. The crystalline floor beneath his clawed feet reflected the swirling tactical data streams, casting eerie shadows across his chitinous features. The newest species to join the coalition, these peculiar bipedal mammals called humans, had been surprisingly effective in their recent border skirmishes against the hegemony forces, but Kethvar remained profoundly unconvinced of their true military potential. 3 months of human integration had yielded mixed results. Sure, they followed orders adequately and showed reasonable tactical awareness, but they lacked the raw physical power of the Vorthak, the technological prowess of the Zenkari, or the psychic coordination of the Ethereals. They were, in Kethvar's professional opinion, unremarkable. Commander Zara, he addressed the human liaison officer in his carefully modulated basic galactic, watching her reaction with predatory interest. Your species has shown adequate performance in standard patrol operations and minor engagements. However, before we can even consider fully integrating human forces into our elite combat divisions, they must pass the crucible. Commander Sarah Zara, a weathered veteran of 3 brutal interstellar conflicts, including the infamous Proxima Centauri siege, raised a single scarred eyebrow. Her expression remained neutral, but Kethvar caught the slight tension in her shoulders. The Crucible? A comprehensive military assessment designed by the greatest tactical minds of 12 coalition species over the course of 4 centuries, Kethvar explained, his razor-sharp mandibles clicking rhythmically with what passed for fierce pride among his kind. It has systematically broken the will and spirit of countless warriors from across the galaxy. Only 3% of all coalition forces have ever completed it successfully, and many of those required multiple attempts. The massive hologram shifted dramatically, displaying a nightmarish landscape of jagged obsidian mountains wreathed in toxic fog, bubbling acidic swamps that glowed with bioluminescent predators, and roiling energy storms that could vaporize unprotected organisms in seconds. Your human unit will face environmental extremes that would instantly kill most known species, navigate through areas of severe reality distortion where physics itself becomes unreliable, complete complex tactical objectives while under constant bombardment from our most sophisticated automated defense systems, and maintain unit cohesion through psychological warfare protocols designed to exploit every known weakness of sentient minds. Zara studied the hellish display with the cool professionalism of a career soldier, her augmented eyes processing tactical data with mechanical precision. And if we fail this assessment? Then humans remain permanently classified as auxiliary support personnel rather than frontline combatants. Kethvar's tone carried the weight of absolute certainty. He fully expected exactly that outcome within the first few hours. When do we start? Zara asked without even a moment's hesitation. Kethvar's mandibles clicked faster, betraying his surprise at her immediate acceptance. Tomorrow at dawn. And, Commander, he leaned forward on his powerful haunches, bringing his face closer to hers. Understand this clearly. No species in coalition history has ever completed the Crucible in under 72 hours. The current standing record is 68 hours and 14 minutes, held by the legendary Vorthak Siege Marines, warriors bred specifically for impossible combat scenarios. Zara nodded grimly, her mind already racing through personnel selections and equipment requirements. She had exactly 48 hours to prepare her team for what the galaxy's finest military minds had specifically designed to be utterly impossible for any force to overcome quickly. The challenge was clear, the stakes were absolute, and failure meant humanity would forever remain second-class citizens in the coalition's military hierarchy. But as she turned to leave, Kethvar missed the slight smile that flickered across her battle-scarred features. In the cramped human barracks, constructed from repurposed coalition storage modules, Commander Zara assembled her carefully selected team. The 12 soldiers seated around the improvised briefing table represented the absolute elite of human military capability, Battle-hardened Marines who'd fought in the sulfur storms of Kepler 438b, Army Rangers who'd survived the brutal urban warfare of New Babylon's siege, Navy SEALs who'd conducted impossible underwater operations in alien oceans, Air Force pararescue specialists who'd extracted personnel from worlds where the very atmosphere was toxic, and even two civilian contractors whose specialized skills had proven invaluable in humanity's most classified operations. "Listen up, people," Zara began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority as she activated the portable holographic projector. The Crucible's nightmarish layout materialized above the table in three-dimensional detail. Coalition Command thinks this little exercise will break us. 12 different alien species, each with centuries of military experience, collaborated to design this specifically to push warriors beyond their absolute limits and into complete psychological and physical collapse. Sergeant Major Johnson, a grizzled Marine veteran whose weathered face bore more scars than smooth skin, souvenirs from 3 decades of combat across 17 different worlds, actually chuckled, his eyes crinkling with dark amusement. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that sounds like what we used to call a Tuesday morning PT session back at Paris Island." "That's exactly what I was thinking," replied Lieutenant Chen, a ranger whose legendary survival skills had kept him alive during the 18-month siege of New Babylon, where human forces held a critical spaceport against overwhelming odds. But let's not underestimate these alien bastards. They've had literally centuries to perfect this particular form of sophisticated torture. The team spent the next 24 hours in intensive analysis, systematically dissecting every aspect of the Crucible's design with the methodical precision that had made human military forces so unexpectedly effective. What struck them immediately wasn't the individual challenges. Humans had routinely faced similar environmental extremes on Earth's most hostile continents and during their brutal colonial expansion wars, but rather the carefully orchestrated combination and relentless intensity designed to compound stress factors exponentially. "Look at this weather pattern analysis," noted Dr. Elena Reeves, one of the civilian contractors and a former Antarctic deep ice researcher who'd spent 2 years studying alien atmospheric phenomena. "They expect us to seek shelter and rest during the thermal storm cycles. The entire scenario assumes we'll need regular recovery periods." "Well, you know what they say about assuming," quoted Corporal Martinez with a trademark grin, earning the expected groans from his teammates. "No, wait, he's actually right," Zara realized, her tactical mind suddenly recognizing the fundamental flaw in the Crucible's design philosophy. "They're testing us based on how other species would logically react to these stressors. But humans don't react like other species do." That revelation changed everything. Instead of preparing for a brutal test of endurance, they began preparing for what humans did best, turning impossible situations into routine operations. But as she turned to leave, Kethvar missed the slight smile that flickered across her battle-scarred features. The next morning, Coalition observers from across 12 different species gathered in the sprawling command center, their diverse forms creating a bizarre assembly of scales, chitin, crystalline structures, and bioluminescent appendages. Representatives from the militaristic Vorthok Empire, the technologically advanced Zenkari Collective, the ethereal Psychic Mind Hive, and 9 other major powers filled the observation deck, most of them discreetly placing bets on how quickly the humans would desperately request emergency extraction from the Crucible. "Thermal storm intensity holding steady at 340 degrees Celsius," reported the crystalline observer, her voice chiming like wind through diamond formations. "Gravity wells fluctuating unpredictably between 0.3 and 4.2 standard gravities. Atmospheric toxicity currently measuring at 67% immediately lethal concentration for carbon-based life forms." Admiral Kethvar nodded with grim satisfaction, his mandibles clicking in anticipation. "Excellent. All parameters within acceptable ranges for maximum psychological impact. Begin live transmission to the Crucible Zone." On the massive main viewing screen, the human team materialized in the Crucible's designated starting zone through the soft blue glow of teleportation matrices. Instead of the expected long moment of hesitation, strategic planning, or visible shock at the hostile environment, they immediately began moving with the fluid, practiced efficiency of a unit that had drilled together for years under fire. Johnson, Chen established perimeter security. Commander Zara commanded with casual authority, her voice cutting through the howling winds and energy discharges. Martinez, Reeves, give me a complete environmental assessment within 60 seconds. Everyone else, standard diamond formation, maintain visual contact. Roger that, ma'am, Sergeant Major Johnson called back, already scanning the horizon through his enhanced optics. Current temperature holding steady at 340 Celsius. Bit chilly for morning physical training, but nothing we can't handle. The assembled alien observers exchanged confused glances. Their various forms of communication, telepathic pulses, pheromone releases, harmonic vibrations, creating a symphony of bewilderment. Chilly? The thermal storms had forced 3 separate species to abandon their crucible attempts within the first hour, their warriors suffering complete mental breakdowns from the environmental stress alone. Gravity fluctuations detected and cataloged, reported Lieutenant Chen with professional detachment, dancing around between 1 and 4 Gs. Feels exactly like that specialized training facility we used on Titan during the Europa campaign. Atmospheric composition is actually significantly better than those sulfur mines on Kepler 442, added Dr. Reeves cheerfully, checking her portable analyzer. Toxicity levels are manageable. We won't even need full environmental suits or heavy respirators for this one. In the command center, shocked silence reigned supreme. The environmental conditions that had systematically broken elite alien warriors from across the galaxy were being casually compared to human training facilities and routine mining operations. "Sir," whispered a Vorthok observer to Admiral Kethvar, his warriors' instincts recognizing something unprecedented. "They're treating this like a standard morning exercise routine." On screen, the humans had begun jogging through the acidic, toxic swamp in perfect formation, maintaining unit cohesion while effortlessly navigating the chaotic gravity wells and energy storms. Sergeant Major Johnson was actually calling traditional military cadence, his voice carrying across the hostile landscape. But as she turned to leave, Kethvar missed the slight smile that flickered across her battle-scarred features. 4 hours into the crucible, the humans had reached the first major checkpoint, a towering mountain face that soared nearly 2 kilometers into the toxic atmosphere, its obsidian surface slick with acidic condensation. The cliff required technical climbing while under constant fire from a sophisticated network of automated defense systems that had been calibrated over decades to create an impenetrable zone of overlapping kill fields. Projectile weapons, directed energy beams, sonic disruptors, and what appears to be some kind of neural scrambler, Lieutenant Chen observed with clinical detachment, studying the defensive grid through his enhanced tactical display. Pretty standard area denial system, though the integration is more sophisticated than usual. Plus, gravity's jumping unpredictably between 0.8 and 3.2 standard, added Corporal Martinez, testing his equipment's compensation systems. Rock face shows significant structural instability from the energy discharges. Could get interesting. Commander Zara checked her chronometer and frowned. "We need to pick up the pace, people. We're falling behind schedule." In the command center, Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked in complete bewilderment. Behind schedule? By every tactical metric, they're running 4 hours ahead of the previous record holder. The Vorthak military attaché, a battle-scarred warrior whose own unit had set the standing record, was reviewing his historical data with growing disbelief. "Admiral, my Marines took 18 hours just to reach the base of that cliff face. These humans are already planning their ascent." On the main screen, the human team was ascending the treacherous cliff face with alarming speed, their movements fluid and coordinated despite the hostile environment. Instead of carefully plotting routes to avoid the automated defenses, they were using the predictable firing patterns as timing markers for their advance. Incoming energy burst in 3, 2, mark. Chen called out, as the entire team flowed around the attack like water, each member moving to predetermined positions with practiced precision. "They're not avoiding the defenses," realized the Aquarian observer, her bioluminescent patches flickering with amazement. "They're incorporating them into their movement rhythm." Dr. Reeves, despite being a civilian contractor, was keeping pace with the career soldiers, her enhanced climbing gear compensating for her lack of military augmentations. "This reminds me of that old documentary about free climbing El Capitan," she panted into her comm unit, "except with significantly more explosions and energy weapons. And considerably better weather conditions," added Sergeant Major Johnson dryly, as another thermal storm passed overhead, its superheated winds providing convenient updrafts for their ascent. The automated defense systems, originally designed to force attacking units into slow, methodical advancement while under constant psychological pressure, were being treated like a particularly aggressive obstacle course. The humans had transformed a grueling test of survival into what appeared to be an elaborate team-building exercise. "Contact left, multiple aerial targets," called out Martinez, as a swarm of combat drones emerged from concealed positions in the cliff face. "Finally, something moderately interesting," muttered Corporal Williams, the team's heavy weapons specialist, shouldering his plasma rifle, "though these systems are practically antiques compared to what we faced on Proxima." What followed was a textbook demonstration of human military doctrine, overwhelming violence applied with surgical precision and devastating efficiency. The drone swarm was eliminated in under 30 seconds. But as she turned to leave, Kethvar missed the slight smile that flickered across her battle-scarred features. By the 10th hour, the human team had reached the Crucible's final phase, a labyrinthine complex of interconnected challenges that previous coalition forces had taken entire days to navigate, assuming they survived long enough to attempt them. The humans were treating it like a particularly engaging morning's work, their energy levels seemingly unaffected by the previous hours of extreme physical and mental stress. "Maze of infinite mirrors," Lieutenant Shen read from their shared tactical display, his augmented eyes parsing the complex spatial distortions ahead. Reality distortion fields, temporal loops, psychological warfare elements, and what appears to be some kind of sentient AI designed to exploit cognitive weaknesses. "Sounds exactly like that SARE training facility in Nevada," commented Martinez with casual familiarity. "The classified one, with the experimental alien technology integration and advanced interrogation protocols." "Fewer actual aliens running it, though," noted Dr. Reeves, checking her specialized sensor equipment. "This is all artificial intelligence-based, which makes the psychological manipulation algorithms much more predictable and easier to counter." The maze had been painstakingly designed by the Coalition's most brilliant xenopsychologists to trap and systematically confuse any species that entered, using advanced alien psychology research to identify and exploit universal mental weaknesses. Unfortunately for the maze's creators, they had designed their trap based on species that didn't understand human psychology or the peculiar way human minds process trauma and stress. "Temporal loop detected and cataloged," announced the automated system in its precisely modulated voice. "Participants currently experiencing repeated scenario manifestations designed to induce psychological breakdown." "Yeah, we noticed the repetition about 20 minutes ago," Sergeant Major Johnson replied conversationally to the empty air around them. "Third time through this exact same section." Pattern recognition and adaptive thinking happen to be fundamental human specialties. What should have been a mind-bending challenge that drove warriors to madness became an elaborate problem-solving exercise. The humans systematically began mapping the maze's underlying logic patterns, methodically turning its own complexity and sophistication against it with ruthless efficiency. "The psychological warfare components are activating now," reported the ethereal observer, her translucent form shimmering with concern. "Manifestations of deepest fears, traumatic memories, and existential despair." On screen, the human team was encountering holographic projections of their worst fears and most traumatic combat memories. The psychological effect was immediate and profound. They became noticeably more focused, determined, and operationally effective. "Oh, you want to play the trauma card?" Sergeant Major Johnson laughed at a projection showing his worst combat experience from the Martian Rebellion. "Son, where I come from, that's what we call Tuesday morning motivation." "The humans are actually improving under psychological pressure," observed the Zenkari representative, his mechanical voice processors struggling to compute this unprecedented data. "This contradicts every known psychological warfare principle." "It's called stress inoculation," Commander Zara explained patiently to the Maze's increasingly confused AI systems. "Humans don't break under pressure. We get stronger, more focused, and more dangerous." The maze, carefully designed to exploit psychological weaknesses that every known species possessed, was instead providing the team with an unexpected therapeutic outlet. They were literally running toward their problems and solving them with extreme prejudice. 14 hours, 37 minutes, and 23 seconds, announced the automated system with mechanical precision, its processors struggling to verify the unprecedented data. Crucible completion achieved. All objectives successfully completed. All personnel accounted for and operational. In the command center, the silence was absolutely deafening. Representatives from 12 advanced civilizations, species that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia, sat in stunned disbelief as the implications of what they had just witnessed slowly penetrated their consciousness. The previous record of 68 hours and 14 minutes, set by the legendary Vorthak siege marines, warriors literally bred for impossible combat scenarios, had been shattered by more than 53 hours. "There must be a fundamental system error," Admiral Kethvar insisted desperately, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "Run a complete diagnostic on all Crucible systems. Check every sensor, every environmental control, every automated defense protocol." "Sir," replied the Coalition's most advanced AI with infinite patience, "comprehensive diagnostics show all systems functioned within normal parameters throughout the entire exercise. Environmental hazards remained at maximum intensity. All automated defenses operated at peak efficiency, and psychological warfare protocols functioned exactly as designed. The humans simply completed the Crucible in 14 hours, 37 minutes, and 23 seconds. On the main viewing screen, the human team was conducting post-exercise stretching routines and hydration protocols, looking like they had just finished a moderately challenging training session rather than the Coalition's most grueling and psychologically devastating military assessment. Their vital signs showed elevated but manageable stress levels, well within normal operational parameters. "Not bad for a warm-up exercise," Sergeant Major Johnson commented casually, rolling his shoulders and checking his equipment for wear. "Though I was honestly hoping for something significantly more challenging." "Warm-up?" The Vorthak military attaché's voice cracked with disbelief, his warrior's pride struggling to process this casual dismissal of what his own elite forces considered their greatest achievement. "They consider the Crucible a warm-up exercise?" "Ma'am," Lieutenant Chen addressed Commander Zara with professional formality, "respectfully request permission to run the course again. I believe we can shave off another hour or two with better route optimization and improved tactical coordination." "Negative, Lieutenant," Zara replied with command authority. "We've got actual combat training scheduled for this afternoon. Advanced urban warfare scenarios and zero-gravity assault tactics." The assembled alien observers began to understand the terrifying truth that was slowly dawning on them. The Crucible wasn't just something humans could survive. It was something they considered light recreational exercise, barely worthy of their serious attention. "Admiral," the crystalline observer spoke hesitantly, her harmonic voice trembling with barely controlled fear, "what exactly do humans consider genuinely difficult training?" Commander Zara overheard the question and smiled with the confidence of someone who had seen real challenges. "Well, there's Hell Week, but that's just basic physical and mental conditioning. The real training starts after personnel successfully complete selection." "Hell Week?" Admiral Kethvar asked weakly, dreading the answer.
5.5 days, minimal sleep, constant physical stress, and psychological pressure, Dr. Reeves explained casually. It's what we use to see if someone's ready to begin actual training. The crucible, Martinez added helpfully, would be maybe half a day of Hell Week, if you were taking it easy.
3 months later, the Crucible had undergone complete redesign and reclassification. What had once been the Coalition's ultimate military test, the gold standard of warrior assessment that had broken the spirits of countless elite soldiers across the galaxy, was now used as a standard physical fitness evaluation for newly recruited human forces. Current metrics show new recruits completing the modified Crucible in under 20 hours, reported Commander Zara to the Coalition War Council, a diverse assembly of military leaders whose expressions ranged from shell-shocked to morbidly fascinated. Veteran personnel average 12 to 14 hours. Our Special Forces teams have begun treating it as a recovery exercise between more intensive training regimens. Admiral Kethvar, now showing unmistakable signs of what human psychologists might recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder, nodded numbly. His once proud mandibles clicked with nervous energy as he struggled to process the complete restructuring of his understanding of military capability. And your actual training exercises, Commander? What do humans use for genuine assessment? The Crucible serves as a useful warm-up before we begin the real challenges, Zara explained matter-of-factly, her tone suggesting she was discussing routine administrative procedures. Though we've had to modify it significantly to make it physiologically appropriate for baseline human performance standards. Modified how, exactly? Asked the Aquarian representative, her bioluminescent patches flickering with barely controlled anxiety. We systematically removed most of the safety protocols, Zara said with casual professionalism. Research showed that humans consistently perform better under actual threat of death rather than simulated danger. The War Council exchanged horrified glances, their various species equivalent of cold sweats becoming apparent. They had created a test specifically meant to break human spirits, only to discover that humans didn't possess a conventional breaking point. They had a starting point that exceeded every other species' maximum capability. Commander, Admiral Kethvar asked with the morbid curiosity of someone staring into an abyss, what would actually challenge human military forces? Zara considered the question with genuine seriousness, her tactical mind analyzing the problem. Honestly, extended periods of inactivity and boredom. Humans don't handle prolonged downtime well. We require constant challenges and stimulation to maintain peak operational performance. So the Crucible is moderately useful for basic physical training, PT, she clarified for the alien representatives. We've actually had to create multiple advanced versions for different fitness and experience levels. Advanced versions? The crystalline observer's harmonic voice cracked with disbelief. Crucible Plus for intermediate fitness assessment, Crucible Extreme for advanced personnel, and Crucible Nightmare for special forces conditioning, Zara listed methodically. Though our research and development teams are currently working on Crucible Impossible for our most elite operational units. The War Council sat in stunned silence as the full implications crashed over them like a tsunami. They had attempted to create a test that would humble humanity and establish proper hierarchical order, only to accidentally create humanity's new favorite workout routine. Ma'am, Sergeant Major Johnson interrupted, entering the council chamber with his characteristic blend of respect and barely contained enthusiasm. Permission to speak freely? Granted, Sergeant Major. The new recruits are formally requesting modifications to make the Crucible more challenging. They're completing it too quickly to maintain proper training intensity and cardiovascular benefits.